Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Out on That Line. I am Alex, joined, as always, by my co-host, Geoff. Geoff, how you doing tonight?
Forget the questions, Alex. Someone give me another beer.
Well, Geoff, I can give you another beer in just a second, but first, you're going to have to answer a series of questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. On a hot summer night, would you offer your throat to the wolf with the red roses?
Will he offer me his mouth?
Yes.
Will he offer me his teeth?
Yes.
Will he offer me his jaws?
Yes.
Will he offer me his hunger?
Yes.
Again, will he offer me his hunger?
Yes.
And will he starve without me?
Yes.
And does he love me?
Yes.
Yes.
On a hot summer night, would you offer your throat to the wolf with the red roses?
Yes.
I bet you say that to all the boys. What a bunch of nerds.
Oh my God, that felt so weird.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty weird considering that's a boy and a girl. But we did it.
Oh, well, you know, if anything could have made that song more progressive, it was Out on That Line podcast in the year
just
2022.
Batting
Yeah,
1,000, as always.
Well, this week we're going to be talking about Meat Loaf, the life and times of Michael/Marvin Leah Day, a.k.a. Meat Loaf, one of the greatest rock and roll singers that has ever graced the planet. And we're also joined, and he stayed quiet like a little church mouse. We're also joined this week by friend of the pod, now four-time co-host of Out on That Line, Tanner. Welcome back, my friend.
Four-time. What's going on, boys? Glad to be sitting down and talking about the guy that really meant so much to us musically for so many years and will continue to mean the world to us until we're pushing up daisies. The man, the myth, the legend, the loaf.
Yes, he unfortunately passed away just a short time ago, and we kind of delayed doing this episode because I think we wanted to make sure we did it right. We didn't want to wait too long, obviously, but we could have rushed it right out as the next one. But I think we were, interested in getting you, Tanner, on the pod with us, so giving it a little bit more time to go around your schedule worked out for the best. It allowed us all to do a little bit of research, really figure out the things that we want to talk about. So the focus obviously is going to be on the music here, but we're also going to touch on throughout, I'm sure there's random facts and stories and anecdotes and things like that that are going to pop up throughout. So strap in, wander on down the ancient hallway with us, and we're going to get so deep into Meat Loaf. So if you already love Meat Loaf, you're going to love what we have to say tonight. If you don't know anything about Meat Loaf, listen in. Maybe you'll learn a little something. If you don't like Meat Loaf, first of all, fuck you. And second, listen to the pod. Maybe we'll change your mind. So do we want to start with maybe a little background? Alex, did you have anything you want to pop off with here?
No, I mean, I just wanted to remark that with the passing of Meat Loaf, I always assumed, probably because we have friends like Matt Reno, that Meat Loaf was somehow a weirdly niche thing with our hometown. Like, a lot of people from Barrie are very pro Meat Loaf. I myself was introduced to it by my terminally square father, whose other taste in music is he likes Jackson Browne and then Carly Simon, and then the only cool thing that he likes is Meat Loaf. So I've been listening to Meat Loaf since I was a little kid. Probably a little too young to be listening to some of the sexual themes in these songs to really contextualize them. But I always thought that Meat Loaf was a very niche Barrie thing. Because a lot of the music that Meat Loaf made in his lifetime was reminiscent of our other favorite guy, Springsteen. Two very different approaches from the songwriting of Jim Steinman and the songwriting of Bruce Springsteen to the same kind of thing. We were from a town that was kind of what those guys were trying to express in their music. So as soon as Meat Loaf died, people came out of the fucking woodwork and were talking to me about people I never in a million years would have pegged as Meat Loaf fans, came out of the woodwork and were beside themselves. So Meat Loaf fans, we are not vocal, but we are out there and we are passionate, and hopefully this episode will be a lightning rod to our cause. And this is an episode we were planning before he died, and it sucks that it took him passing away for us to finally do this, but we are the three men to prosecute this episode featuring the three bats. So let's get to it.
Yes. So what I wanted to start with is kind of getting a little bit into how each of us came into our love of the loaf. And I'd like to start with Tanner. Yeah, we'll try to keep these a little short.
Yeah,
I'll
keep,
keep
I'll keep it short.
Into real meat and potatoes here.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, I mean, basically my first, listen, the first song I ever heard was Paradise by the Dashboard Light. We were at my grandmother's house. This is the dawn of music theft on the internet. We had installed Kazaa on her computer, and when I say we, I mean me and my mom. So we totally bricked my grandmother's computer illegally downloading music on it. And my mom made this CD, this like road trip CD for her and her really good friend Julie, her college roommate. And Scenes from an Italian Restaurant was one of the songs that was on that CD. So like that was the first time I ever heard that song. So that CD is kind of formative in itself. But Paradise by the Dashboard Light was on that CD, and I had never heard anything like this before, in my life. Also, maybe a tad young for some of the subject matter. Maybe I didn't quite get what was going on when Phil Rizzuto was calling the baseball game. But
Sex and drums and rock and roll,
yeah.
baby.
And then, a little bit later on, I want to say maybe 7th grade, friend of the pod, Brandon, came into school, and he had a burned copy of Bat Out of Hell. We listened to it in like homeroom or something like that on like some small, little CD player that like a teacher had in their room. And it opens, with Bat Out of Hell, and it just like knocked all of us on our asses. Like it was just, again, and I knew Paradise by the Dashboard Light, but I didn't know anything else off of it. And so, back in the day of, the burning CDs and friends having a CD, you burn it, you give it to someone else, it circulates through the friend group and everything. That's really how I first got into Meat Loaf. And then, Geoff, when you and I became friends, that's when I really, 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 that's when I got into Meat Loaf. And that's, I'm sure we'll tell that story once we get to some of the tunes off of Bat Out of Hell too. But that's my Meat Loaf Genesis story right there.
Excellent. And so, Alex, you had mentioned kind of briefly what introduced you to it. Was there something specific?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time like achieving Meat Loaf consciousness. My dad's people are from New Jersey, and that was a 5-hour car ride. And when you're a child, that might as well be an eternity. Right now, that's nothing. I've driven all across the country several times at this point. But at that point, I was like, oh, my God. So the only thing to pass the time was music. And usually it was my mom loved the fucking Eagles. I love my mom to death,
Woof.
but if she's got one fault, it's that she's a fucking Eagles fan. So there was a lot of Eagles that we had to suffer through, a lot of life in the fast lane. But then when it was my dad's turn, he had Bat Out of Hell and Bat Out of Hell 2 on cassette. And that was the shit that I was really looking forward to. I don't know what happened in between Raffi, I like to eat Eipels and Bananas, and Meat Loaf. But I did a lot of growing up in like 2 years. I just remember like those, it not only like passed the time on a road trip, and again, I couldn't contextualize what any of these songs were about, but they were exciting and they were familiar, and it was just something I could sink my teeth into without having to really know what it was all about. I just like got the sense of excitement that came from the music. And obviously as a child, you're like, it's like nothing I've ever heard before, but to this day, it remains something totally singularly unique to me, and I think that's why this is music that I can speak for all of us will be listening to for the rest of our lives.
Well, I remember when I was younger, probably like 8 years old, something like that. my dad, there was 2 CDs that I constantly would take from my dad's room. And it was Aerosmith Big Ones and also Meat Loaf Bad Out of Hell 2. And I would just listen on like loop the album the whole way through. I mean, every single like nuance of every single song on that album, like every single word, all of it. It's all like muscle memory ingrained in me from just so many years. I mean, going on almost, we're going like 25 years at this point, at least, of listening to that album. So that was the one that really got me into it. And then, you know, finding out about Bad Out of Hell 1 because my dad had it on vinyl, and just getting deeper and deeper into it. And just like you said, it's singular. There's nothing else that's like Meat Loaf. It's the best parts of like musical theater and rock and roll and just storytelling, just all wrapped up into one big gigantic voice with some of the best production you've ever heard, especially on Bad Out of Hell 1 and 2. Just an incredible like artist all the way through. I mean, my entire life, like the whole part of my life that was able to create like formative memories, you know, all that kind of stuff. I've been listening to Meat Loaf, and it's just, it never got worse. You know, sometimes it got way better than other times, but it just, I don't know, it was consistent. You always knew there was such a huge catalog of awesome music to go back to with this guy. It was unlike anything else. And I think that's the thing I love the most about it. And that's what I'm going to miss the most about having him around on planet Earth.
That's a real quick thing I want to say too. There's a lot of cynicism. I think I said this on my Instagram the day that he died, which is the lamest thing I've ever said, but go with me. But there's a lot of cynicism that goes with a celebrity death, because you get a huge contingent of people who are like, dude, why are you making this about you? You didn't know the fucking guy. And at the time I was like, yeah, we do. That's the whole point of being a musician, is letting people get to know you and sharing what's important to you and bringing them into your world. And Meat Loaf and Jim Steinman, because I think it's important to make sure Jim Steinman's name comes up a lot during this. What the two of them gave us brought us closer to them in many ways than we could have gotten if we were around them physically. So then the other argument is, well, you know, he wasn't making music up until the end. Like, he hadn't made anything, let alone anything good. So, like, he's gone. What do you care? And I'm like, that is like the most callous thing to say about a human being that just died. His worth is not tied up in his productivity. Okay. Also, that means you're asking for more albums like Hell in a Handbasket and Braver Than We Are, which I highly recommend that you don't ask for more of.
Don't do it. Yeah, don't do it.
But in all seriousness, it was a human being. So being like, he wasn't making anything new, why you care that he died? I'm like, fuck off. That's so unnecessarily shitty.
Well, and you had mentioned earlier, you know, how people kind of came out of the woodwork. Friend of the pod, Mitch, his mom texted me when Meat Loaf passed, and she said, you know, sad news about Meat Loaf today. Still remember when his album came out, we played it over and over and over, which goes to what Geoff was saying. And she's talking about Bad Out of Hell 1. That was the best summer ever. And like, so for her, the Bad Out of Hell is like a time machine back to when she had this Datsun car and was living in a beach house in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, you know, like, and again, it's just so interesting, like the different ways that Meat Loaf touched people and everything.
Do you think Jim Steinman wrote one of his songs about Mitch's mom? It was a hot summer night and the beach.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Was that? It's just because of the album they couldn't fit on. You took the words right out of my mouth, Loreen. They couldn't fit that on there, so they had to cut the last part off.
Yeah, Steinman title's too long anyway.
Yeah, you got parentheses, hyphens. We got brackets,
semicolon.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, it was. That was I think a lot of people probably have that feeling about him. You know, I'm sure, like, my dad told me, like, Meat Loaf was one of the ones that he'd play on the big ass Bose speakers on his record player, you know, nights before they'd be getting ready to go out. You know, so, and it's just like, you've both listened to Meat Loaf on vinyl. It's a great experience.
Oh,
and on a big ass set of speakers, it's even better. So it's just, I feel like he has these kind of core memories for so many people that there's not a lot of artists that have, kind of that can make that claim. And I mean, let alone like the third best selling, I don't know where it is at this point on the charts, but like Bat Out of Hell was the third best selling album ever for a long time, for like decades, only beaten out by the Eagles' Greatest Hits and Carole King Tapestry. And I'm sure it's got bumped down now because there's all sorts of weird, kind of qualifiers for what constitutes an album sale. But that album sold millions. He sold over 70 million albums worldwide. That's a crazy, crazy number. Crazy number.
I have some figures here if we want to like really get into the weeds with it.
Hit it. Yeah, let's let people know who we're dealing with here.
Bat Out of Hell 1. So here, I'll start with a fucked up thing first. We'll eat our shit sandwich. In 2003, on the Rolling Stone 500 Greatest Albums of All Time, Bat Out of Hell was 343 out of 500. Okay.
Gross.
2020 removed from the list altogether. As if fucking Rolling Stone was already lacking in credibility in many ways. This ought to clinch it for you. It did for me. Let's see. It continues to sell. Bat Out of Hell continues to sell 200,000 copies per year. 30 to 40 million copies sold worldwide to date. 25 times platinum in Australia, 14 in the US, 11 in the UK. It was on the top of the UK charts for 522 weeks, behind only Fleetwood Mac's Rumours and Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon in terms of that run. So pretty tough statistics here.
You mentioned Australia. It is the best-selling album of all time in Australia.
Fucking A.
Hell yeah.
They get it.
Hell yeah.
They
Those
fucking get it.
kangaroos know what's up.
Yeah, kangaroos just out there bopping for crying out loud.
You know, I
That's
love
what
you.
they keep in their little pouches. That's the little Joey in their CD player. They must have some awesome anti-skip technology. Because like kangaroos be bouncing.
It's the Sony with the wraparound headphones all over again.
Yep.
But that's
That
a story
baby
for
a jog
another
and
time.
try not to rip the headphones off your head.
That weird feeling where like it just rips your ear like clean off when you.
Oh my God! Did I burst my eardrum?
That'll
Well,
teach you to listen to rock and roll while you exercise.
it's the devil's music. Should we?
Well, do you have any more figures? Because I feel like is there more?
Those are the most impressive ones to strut. I hate
Okay.
to be negative, but it's kind of all downhill from there. By the time we get to the
Okay.
third Bat Out of Hell, so we'll
Well,
leave looking
greatest
strong.
greatest selling album of all time in Australia. That's something to hang your hat on, baby.
Fuck yeah!
That is a strong performance. Well, we decided, and it turned out like this rule was followed generally, but there were some picks we just couldn't leave out. So we each picked one song from each of the Bat Out of Hell albums, both Bat Out of Hell 2, Back Into Hell, and the Monsters Loose Bat Out of Hell 3 album, as well as the first one. We've also added a couple more. They all happen to be from Bat Out of Hell 2. I think probably is the most linchpin Meat Loaf album, at least for me. And I think I know me and Tanner, just from all the time we spent listening to that one. And I'm guessing you as well, Alex, because it's just got the bangers.
And
He just let his nuts really hang on that one.
big time. I will say I am a Bat Out of Hell OG #1 stan first and foremost.
Okay.
But I'm not going to sit here and call 2 inferior in any way. It's two completely different feelings, two completely different. Because what? First one came out in 77 and the second one came out in 91, 92?
Yeah, there was a long gap. It was a hotly anticipated album.
Yeah, I mean, it's two very different versions of the same story. I don't want to say the same album because there are so many differences to be celebrated from that time span that it took. But it's a continuation of all those themes, that whole story. It's an amazing progression between all three. I know a lot of people kind of throw some side eye at Bat Out of Hell 3 because they felt like it was a little disjointed because it's like, I think, 7 Steinman songs, 2 of which were used in different projects originally. But I'm like, I don't understand how you can think that one's disjointed. I think there's more unity to it than it has any right to. So that's another testament to Meat Loaf, is like through decades, Meat Loaf and Jim Steinman, through decades, there's this much thematic unity, and it's like an absolutely appropriate continuation of where they started with Bat Outta Hell in 1977. So should we get into it?
We should absolutely just get into it. And I think what better song to start with than the pick of our guest Tanner. It's Bat Outta Hell, the title song from the debut album.
Yeah, and it just comes right out of the gate, and it punches you right in the face. There's no build into this. It doesn't start out quiet. It just comes right out. It's telling you, essentially, you haven't heard anything like this before, and you won't again. That's what it's doing in essentially the first minute and a half, I would say, of the title track. You get so many triumphant guitar hooks just all over this song. And we talk about, I know that this is a very pro-Springsteen podcast, which slots in with my beliefs on Springsteen as well. You can't help but notice the guitar parts are very like Born to Run-esque. And he's got Roy Bittan playing on 6 of 7 songs on the album, and Mighty Max Weinberg on the drums on tracks 1, 2, and 6. So this is one of those ones where Mighty Max is on the drums, and yeah, I mean, I have some notes here, some lyrical notes and stuff, but this song is just like, and again, Bad Hell 2 is my favorite Meat Loaf album, but this song is like the perfect encapsulation of what Meat Loaf is. Like if somebody was like, I have 11 minutes, which is what you're gonna need for most Meat Loaf songs. I have 11 minutes. Give me one Meat Loaf song to listen to. I've never heard anything he's done before. This is the one that I would slot up.
This is literally his first impression. It's the first song off his first major album, because he did Stoney and the Loaf and stuff like that.
We're not gonna count that.
And a bunch of theater and all that kind of stuff. But like this, Meat Loaf, as we know him and as we think of him, this was his first impression. So I think you're absolutely right. This is where you start someone off.
This song just fucks so hard right out of the gate when it just hits that guitar riff, and then the piano. I mean, it is so prime. It is so pure. It is rock and roll exactly how I want it, but would have never thought of doing it this way. You know, I think that is the beauty of Jim Steinman, especially because Meat Loaf on his own proved to not be quite as strong as he was when he and Jim Steinman were working together, and vice versa. Jim Steinman was not as strong without Meat Loaf either. That was a total like symbiotic relationship. This song, the way that it just tells the story, but it's this in just the big way that only Meat Loaf can do it. I mean, he's talking about like being a literal bat out of hell. I'll be gone when the morning comes. It's just all of these like kind of pictures that he draws for you with the lyrics that Jim Steinman wrote about just like the gates of heaven, like a sinner before the gates of heaven, I'll come crawling on back to you. I mean, just like these big grandiose statements, but they work so well because the music matches every bit of the intensity that Meat Loaf is providing. And he was famous for being one of the most intense performers that there was.
Oh, every picture of him that you look at, especially from like the 70s, the late 70s and the early 80s, he's just pouring in sweat. He was fat as fuck for most of his life. No shade, but just like a man that big. That's how he got the name Meat Loaf. He was a big ass chunk of meat. And a guy that size who, in a tweet that I saw that was brilliant, it was like Meat Loaf was basically a theater kid who threw on a leather jacket and started singing about sex and motorcycles. And we all just said, yeah, that's pretty cool. But the man, he was such a charismatic stage performer. He had energy coming out of the underworld. He drew his strength from the dark dimension. And you want to talk about Springsteen. Jim Steinman admits that Springsteen was not necessarily an influence on this album, but an inspiration for him in terms of consuming that music, liking it, because they are addressing a lot of the same things. The difference being, Bruce Springsteen is like, I'm going to show up at your house on a bike and ask for your daddy so I can see if I can take you to the dance tonight. Now picture Meat Loaf doing that, except he's soaked in blood and his ass is on fire, and there appear to be demons from hell trying to drag him back under the ground. But he loves her that much that he escaped literal hell. I mean, this song, Bad Out of Hell, is a
Yeah.
crash song. Like, he crashes. It's about the guy who hits the blind curve and crashes his bike. Tragic James Dean story. If James Dean was like, binging on ham and came back with all the fire and the fury of hell leashed in at his heels to claim the love of his life. That's the level of intensity we're talking about with every single fucking song on this album.
And I mean, it's just like you get shot out of a cannon like a bat out of hell right into the rest of this album. And the next song we're going to talk about is one, a little reprise here from earlier in the episode. You folks may remember, you may still be sweating from, just the pure animal magnetism that we were displaying during that whole process. But you took the words right out of my mouth. In parentheses, Hot Summer Night. Again, they left out Loreen.
It's implied.
Yeah, those who know. If you know, you know.
So this one almost reminded me of like Warren Zevon, and how he just picks these kind of like fantastical sorts of things to write about, and then Meat Loaf delivers them just as hard as like when Warren Zevon does Werewolves in London, for example. It's like you really get the picture of this as an actual werewolf in a suit walking around London, and I think that's exactly the strength of this one, is because, it starts with, will you offer your throat to the wolf with the red roses? And it's like, okay, is it really a wolf? But you kind of imagine it that way. It's this very slick, it's the classic that you see a movie from the 50s or the 60s. Like the evil guy was always dressed in like a real sharp suit, super slicked back hairs. Like they just dripped of this, like kind of, you don't really want to get into bed with them, and I think that's the whole thing with this song. And Meat Loaf just plays that part, just fits into this song so well that's what makes it so believable in every single song, is that theater background allows him to just play these characters. And it is done so perfectly because he finds a way to put himself into it. And that's how you get to know him. Like you're mentioning earlier, like we really did know these people. It's because of the work they put in. It's same as any other actor that you see perform over their whole career. You get to know them a little bit, kind of as a person. And I think that this song, even though it is ridiculous, the premise of it, that it's a wolf, that it's like this little Red Riding Hood that he's chasing after, it's none of it feels forced or fake or like it doesn't belong in the story. And I think it's just so good the way they do it.
I want to toss this to you, my man. You've been awfully quiet over there. Silent but deadly.
Yeah, I've been farting a lot.
I wasn't going to totally out you. I was going to let that be our little secret.
I'll own it.
As you were.
The note that I have about this song is that the guitar hook in it, like the guitar riff, is more classic Meat Loaf / Jim Steinman, very in line with what you hear on Bat Out of Hell. The drum part makes you want to dance, especially like in the chorus, that, boom, 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 clap, boom, 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 clap, like that. It's very infectious. And the lyrics that stick out with me are, "Oh, will you hold me so close and my knees grow weak, but my soul is flying high above the ground. I'm trying to speak, but no matter what I do, I just can't seem to make any sound." And like that for me is very much like me at like a 7th grade dance and like trying to like go ask the girl that I like to like dance, and like you're like so nervous and everything, and like I just immediately able to relate that. This is a totally fantastical song. As Geoff said, like you visualize him almost as a wolf. You know what I mean? Like due to that intro. But this, it's just a very personal lyric, and relatively short in terms of Steinman Productions, 5 minutes and 4 seconds long.
Yeah. And I love the way that exact part you're talking about, the way that it's delivered by Meat Loaf, as only Meat Loaf could do it. It's tender and vulnerable, but completely confident. Like, this was a guy, and whether he did actually get ass or not, he was a charismatic fat guy who sure knew how to act like he did. So when you're, like, I was a fat kid and a fat teenager, and I was just like, oh, I'll never get girls to like me. And then you listen to Meat Loaf, and it's like, oh, I mean, maybe if I do this, she will. But it's that same sensation where it's like you're so spellbound by someone, and he's not. When I say he's vulnerable, he's not like projecting fat kid energy. He's hiding it very, very well, but letting it be known like, oh shit, I'm nervous. Like, I want you. I'm confident in my abilities, but my attraction to you is so strong that I literally can't make any sound when I'm around you. And quite frankly, he's already gotten her because you took the words out of my mouth. It must have been while you were kissing me. So it's like the amount of confidence in this material, like casting Meat Loaf as the tragic young lover, like a James Dean type, be like having Timothy Chalamet play the dearly departed Louis Anderson. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's totally unexpected, but he owns that dynamic, and it comes across in his performance. And again, quintessential Meat Loaf. There's just, it's like Dr. Pepper, 23 different mystery flavors. We don't know what they are. They all come together to give us this sound and this experience.
Yeah, in this, I think this song, like 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You know, those are the ones that criticism of them sounding too much like Springsteen or trying to like ape that sound. These are the ones that kind of really differentiated it from that, because like Springsteen wasn't doing anything that sounded like that. Much more like Motown influenced. So it showed that they were influenced by the same people that Springsteen was influenced by. They weren't necessarily, you know, he was like an inspiration more than an influence. I think Jim Steinman had said, like you said. And I think this song is like, just sets it so far apart from that the comparison doesn't even make any sense to me. Like on a few songs, maybe, but this one is just so good and so different that kind of drops that for me.
Can I make one quick further Springsteen allusion? Little Steven Van Zandt, hooked on Ponics, when he heard this song, he went around recommending it to everyone because he said it is literally the best opening. Once the instrumentals kick in, it is the best opening 10 seconds of a rock and roll song he had ever heard. This is a guy who worked with Bruce Springsteen. So that's a testament to how explosive this music is. And again, it's got that Springsteen relatability. It's distinct enough in its sound, and there are just enough nuggets where you're like, oh, okay, you can kind of see them winking and nodding across the way from Texas to New Jersey. And I think that's fucking cool because they sound completely different, but you get that wink and a nod. And obviously we have huge boners for Meat Loaf and Bruce Springsteen, so maybe that's only significant to us. But whatever, it's our show.
And also the saxophone on this, part of that best 10 seconds in music in like rock and roll, by Edgar Winter, was the saxophone player on this one. Yeah,
sure.
I mean, Edgar Winter, guitar Todd Rundgren, drums Max Weinberg, piano Roy Bittan. I mean, stacked, absolutely stacked in the studio.
And I was going to mention this on the next song, but I'll mention it now. Todd Rundgren also arranged all of the background vocals on this and Bat 2. He had limited stuff on Bat 3, but you can the harmonization and the way that the voices propel Meat Loaf's voice and complement it. The part at the very end, I was just about to say I love you, and they all come in with that love you. There's like a 7-part harmony that hits like just for those 2 words. Again, it's just, and maybe that's another great thing about Meat Loaf songs is that like it's not so much call and response, but it's that Meat Loaf will sing a line or will sing a couple of words, and then like 40 voices seemingly will just come over the top of you as you're listening to it and like reinforce it. And again, a lot of stuff like that happens on Bat Out of Hell too. Which again, continuation of the Rundgren vocal arrangement. But yeah, I mean the personnel on this first album, like we love the album enough as it is, and then you find out who's playing on it and you're like, holy shit.
Rundgren was instrumental in getting this shit made. He thought that they had a record deal. They could not give this album away. Did anyone else read the quotation from Clive Davis? Because I would like to read it over the air.
Go for it.
They met with Clive Davis, and you got it up here?
Is it this?
Yeah. He sat them down. It was specifically Steinman. He said, do you know how to write a song? Do you know anything about writing? If you're going to write for records, it goes like this: A, B, C, B, C, C. I don't know what you're doing. You're doing A, D, F, G, B, D, C. You don't know how to write a song. Have you ever listened to pop music? Have you ever heard any rock and roll music? You should go downstairs when you leave here and buy some rock and roll records. To which Meat Loaf said, fuck you, Clive.
Hell yeah.
And Todd Rundgren was kind of the one that took the ball and ran with it because he thought they had a record deal. And he's like, yeah, fuck yeah. I'll bring in some of the guys from Utopia and like, what's the time of our lives doing this? And those, Todd Rundgren is great at those kind of vocal arrangements. And it continues that duality that you see throughout the Three Bats, which is this war between heaven and hell, a mortal man trying his best to be good, but ruled by impulse and living in an unfair, cruel world. And to me, the instrumentations, especially like the squealing guitars and the horns and stuff like that, especially on the like really haunting over the top songs, those are the demons. And then you've got these vocal parts that, like you said, kind of come in over the top out of nowhere in like multitudes, and like those are the angels. And that's never explicitly pointed out, but that's what I get out of it because of the imagery that they give you lyrically and musically. It's like it's the perfect marriage. It takes your fucking breath away, like in the song.
Let's move on to Paradise by the Dashboard Light. Now, this one was chosen by Alex.
Yeah, and of course I picked this one because I always pick all the fuck songs, right? So Paradise by the, I got to stay on brand. It's a new year. I'm not going to not mention Frank Zappa, and I'm not going to not pick sex songs.
Bing me bing.
Mark your cards. No, but in all seriousness, it's pretty brief for me. I think the two biggest things it's got going for it are it is a 3-part story arc where you've got this beginning of like, ooh, it's two kids necking in a car, right? In a classic car. Oh, and Meat Loaf's like, God, I hope I score with her tonight. And she's putting up resistance. We've then got this middle section with Phil Rizzuto, who's calling it like a baseball game, using all the base metaphors that you use when you're shy and coquettish. Did you get to first base? Oh, I got to second. I know what you're doing. So we've got Rizzuto just calling that in the middle. Great stuff like he's in the dirt. I like to imagine I know what that's a reference to.
Head first slide in. Yeah.
God.
Holy cow, I think he's going to make it.
Sorry to cut you off. There's like the part where it's like, out. He's out. Oh, no, wait, he's safe. Safe. Like, it's like you can like visualize that. Like he goes for like a grab and like she swats him away. He's out. And then he goes back and, oh, wait, he's safe. He's safe at second base.
It's so over the top. It's great. And then it just can't stop right there. I gotta know right now. And we get this like really dynamic back and forth between Meat Loaf and it's Ellen Foley, right? Can you confirm?
Yeah.
Is the woman singing? His girlfriend at one point, I think. Maybe at the time.
Yeah.
But now we've got this great back and forth, and she's like, hey, I want a promise, okay? I want to know that you're going to marry me. You got to buy the cow. You're not just getting the milk for free. And he's like, can we put this off? I'll give you an answer in the morning. She's like, no, you got to tell me right now or the deal's off. And he's so horny and he's so desperate. He says, fine. But then you realize you've made that vow, and now you are praying for the end of time so you can end your time together. And that brings up to me, it's not just the classic story, but the second thing that I love about it is it's funny as fuck. Meat Loaf is very funny. Jim Steinman is very funny, and not like poopy caca fart like my man Frank Zappa, but just this like really smart tongue-in-cheek kind of way that's also like totally raunchy. So that for me is the greatest strength of Paradise by the Dashboard Light.
Mm-hmm. And Tanner and I had the pleasure of seeing this one live.
Yeah.
And this this was probably the most memorable part of the concert for me. Was Meat Loaf sat down on a speaker, like we were front center. He was, what's stage left is like if you're facing the stage on the left, right?
You're
like
facing
my
the
left
crowd.
hand side if I'm looking.
If you're on stage looking out,
Okay,
stage
so he
left
was
is
stage
your
right.
left.
Okay, so he was stage right. He's sitting down, telling the story, picked up this girl at prom and blah, blah, blah. And then he comes down right in front of a 4-year-old, maybe a 5-year-old, a little kid. I mean, directly in front of him. He gets down to the end, And he stares right at this kid when the girl was like, "Oh, why don't we just go to the lake?" And he goes, "What the fuck would you have done?"
Now, keep
little kid.
Keep in mind that Meat Loaf and his whole band, they do a wardrobe change before they do this song, and he's wearing a wig of the super long hair that he had back from when this album came out, and like the black, like the suit jacket from the back of the album. And they're all dressed in like flower powery stuff. I don't think they quite got what the 70s were. All the studio musicians that he was playing with at the time. But yeah, and like he just gets right down in this kid's face, like leans over the stage. What the fuck would you have done? Place goes fucking ballistic. Yeah!
Huge pop. And the girl that he had singing that song.
Aspen Miller.
My goodness.
Wow, someone was handy with that.
My goodness. He knew I was going to, because how many years has it been? 2007 we saw that concert.
Yeah, God, we're old.
And it's been that many years, and every time we talk about it, I'm like, oh, that girl. But I never remember her name. That's why Tanner took that part of my memory for me.
Yeah. Me and Geoff, we become whole on Aspen Miller.
You took the name right out of my brain.
What I want to say is that this song, like, I don't want to say it's like a shuffle. It's like a boogie. It like boogies along.
Yeah.
Like the guitar starts. Yeah.
Yep.
It's Meat Loaf's second most popular song on Spotify at 102 million streams. Number one is going to come later. It's one of our picks off a later album. And I have, the line, because we were barely 17 and we were barely dressed. You've got glowing like the metal on the edge of a knife. And you've got the very outro of the song. It was long ago, and it was far away, and it was so much better than it is today. And that's Meat Loaf, hearkening back to a simpler time, which is funny to me because later on Bad Out of Hell 3, a song that we're probably not going to touch on, he has a song called The Future Ain't What It Used to Be. Mm-hmm. So, on this album, he's hearkening back, and then on Bad Out of Hell 3, he's looking to the future and stuff. But I also have Phil Rizzuto, obviously, legendary bit, and the band, when Phil Rizzuto's doing the play-by-play, the band is ripping.
Oh, that bass.
Kasim Sultan slapping that bass, and Kasim Sultan was still in the Neverland Express when Geoff and I saw them in 2007.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he was playing bass and singing. Yeah. It just absolutely rips. It hums along. You can't listen to this song and be like, oh, this song sucks. Like, this is a physically, you physically, if anybody says that, throw them out.
That is a real quick thing I want to add here. I looked at some contemporary reviews at the time that called Jim Steinman's music derivative and said that this was like boring and too poppy. I'm like, what the fuck were you smoking? This is derivative?
Yeah, this is nothing like anything else back then.
Fuck off.
Yeah. That's a terrible, terrible take.
Well, I think, does anyone else have anything to say about Bat 1?
It's
no.
The one thing I would like to say is that it's only 7 songs, but they're all so long and grandiose that it feels like it's, it's like an hour and a half of your time. And I would also like to say that Meat Loaf is the ultimate road trip music. You said it about driving to New Jersey and stuff. You can listen to a Meat Loaf album on a drive, and you'll blink and the album will be over, and you've been driving for 2 hours. So another great... we're going up to Maine when we listen to Bat 1, 2, and 3 all in a row.
Paint, yeah.
And it's like a 6-hour drive. That thing flew by. And that's it.
Yeah. Thanks, Papa Meat.
Well, you probably put the pedal to the metal through most of Bat 2.
The Kia Soul was flying. Also,
I'm gonna hit the highway like a battering ram.
Yeah. Hamsters be
in a
damned.
silver black Kia Soul. Well, I'm going to not show my hand here and throw it to the person that chose from Bat Out of Hell to Rock and Roll Dreams Come Through.
This song, this is a very, very important song to me. Play it at my funeral kind of song. Like, this is that important to me. Favorite
Noted.
favorite Meat Loaf song, like head and shoulders above the rest, and I love them all, but like this is the one that got me from the first listen until my 8,000 whatever listened earlier today before we started recording. I want to go back in time to when Geoff picked me up in his car, and I was like, I don't know, 17 or 18. And Geoff used to have this huge book of CDs. It was on like the floor of the passenger side. And like, you know, it would be whatever, we'd listen to whatever. He'd say, hey, you know, reach in, pull out this, pull out that. It was your job as like the co-pilot. And you were like, reach in there and grab Bat Out of Hell 2. And I pulled the CD out, and I remember what the CD looks like very vividly. It's just like all silver, and then it says, you know, Meat Loaf, but it's in like this red font, and the M is like thick, like bold. And I was like, Meat Loaf, really? And then we put it in, you know, we listened to the first 2 songs, which we'll talk about later. And then like this song started, and it was just like, again, just like a dagger like right to my soul. First time hearing it in Geoff's car, monumental music moment. One of my favorite love songs ever. The vocal harmonies at the beginning, like a chorus of angels. We talk about the heaven and hell thing, the angelic background music. It's only 5 minutes and 51 seconds long. One of the shorter songs on Bat 2. Mm-hmm. And then I just have some key lyrics that I have. I mean, think of how we'd lay down together. We'd be listening to the radio so loud and so strong. Every golden nugget coming like a gift of the gods. Someone must have blessed us when he gave us those songs. And like that, it's very meta to me because this song is one of those songs for me. And it's like describing a song. I treasure your love. I never want to lose it. You've been through the fires of hell, and I know you got the ashes to prove it. Prove it. Yeah, and again, the two word choral response.
The harmonies on this are fucking amazing.
Oh yeah.
When it kicks in, keep on believing, bum bum, and you'll discover, baby.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, that. I remember like in Geoff's car, just constantly listening to this song, and like we would just fucking ramp right up and hit that. When Alex and I were in high school, we co-edited the yearbook. He did more work than I did, but we co-edited it. And we got a page in the back of the book, and I picked a bunch of different song lyrics. There's Springsteen on mine. There's Zeppelin on mine. There's 2 Meat Loaf songs on mine, and this is one of them. Once upon a time was a backbeat. Once upon a time, all the chords came to life, and the angels had guitars even before they had wings. If you hold on to a chorus, you can get through the night. And then they come in, get you through the night. Yeah. And then the last thing that I have is, remember everything that I told you, and I'm telling you again that it's true. You're never alone because you can put on the phones and let the drummer tell your heart what to do. Yeah.
That line in particular. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, this song, I wouldn't have picked it because there's just so many bangers on this album, and that's what I love about Meat Loaf. Is I'm there for the bangers, and I know Tanner, you've always been more partial to
I'm the sentimental,
the ballads,
Yeah.
And not that I don't like those. Just for me, I'm about the bangers. But that's why this was so key to get you on, is because there needs to be some representation for the ballad side of things here. This song, along with every other one on Bat Out of Hell 2, which is my favorite Meat Loaf album, if I haven't made that clear, that, like you said, the imagery. I mean, I remember the first time I heard this one, I was like, oh man, this is so cool. Rock and roll dreams come true. And I was like, that is so awesome. What a cool thing to say. And I'm like 9 years old, whatever it is. But it just like, that's like the lines like that, and sex and drums and rock and roll. It just made you feel like badass that you knew stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like you go to your friend's house, they were listening to like Raffi and stuff like that. But you were listening to Meat Loaf. You were listening to rock and fucking roll, man. And this album represented so much of that for me and so much of my growth that's why I shared it with you, Tanner. I was like, probably because I like this guy. Let's see what he thinks about this, because it was that important to me. And this rock and roll dream of our friendship has really come through, buddy.
And here we are. Once upon a time was a backbeat.
Once upon a time, all the poets came to life. This is an album about growth. Really? I mean, we talked about the stretch between 77 and 90 when this came out. And it's, again, the same themes, if you want to look at it, the same kind of characters. And they've taken such a leap forward in life that there's a lot of disappointment and disillusionment in this. You look at a song like We Might As Well, or at some point we'll talk about Life is a Lemon, and that the whole premise of that is like, I didn't get what I thought I was going to get and become who I thought I was going to be by now, and everything has sucked lately. And this song is finding a silver lining in that whole thing. It's like rock and roll dreams can come true. You just have to like believe in the music, believe in what we're doing here, and it'll get you through just one more day, and sometimes that's enough of a dream. I don't have much more to say. I really can't acquit this more passionately than I think Tanner did. But, I mean, yeah, sneaky sleeper pick on your part, Ballad Man.
Yeah. And, Tanner, I got to be honest with you. I don't know if Alex mentioned anything to you, but we were playing a little game amongst ourselves, trying to predict
you were trying to
what you
figure
were gonna
out what.
pick.
Yeah. That's
We both called this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think the second one was going to be Objects in the Rearview Mirror. I think it was going to be the secondary.
Yes, I think you're right.
The deal with Objects in the Rearview Mirror is rock and roll dreams come through. I wear it like in my heart. Objects in the Rearview Mirror. It's like it's its own musical, and it's this very broad thing, but it does contain, as Geoff equated in his car the day that I first heard this album, the best moment in music history, and it starts at the 2:30 mark of Objects in the Rearview Mirror. Maybe you're closer than they are. And if you're going to go and listen to Meat Loaf after you listen to this podcast, if you're not familiar with it, listen to that song. When that build and that swell happens and you don't feel something, check your wrist, my friend, because you have no fucking pulse, because that just rips. And that's all I got to say about that song.
Yeah. Fucking
Incredible moment, truly.
Yeah.
Truly an incredible moment in music. Well, do we want to save? So we got some options here. So do you want to go through the ones that we picked first and then the additional ones? Because I just threw them up here in like a random order.
Let's just go in whatever order you got. I'm going to be very
Okay.
cognizant of not blathering. So,
Okay, so the next one, the big one. I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that. Now, there were two versions of this song. There was the radio edit, which most people are familiar with, which doesn't answer the question of what he won't do. And then there is the version that I'm sure we'd rather talk about, the album version, where it's got the extended motorcycle intro, which the guy at the concert did on the guitar somehow, like perfectly. I mean, it was exactly like it sounded on the album.
that's
Yeah.
how
it was
was
just
done,
like
yeah.
so cool.
Paul
So
Crooks
cool.
was the guitar player when we saw him that did that, yeah. And I just want to jump in real quick. This is the top played Meat Loaf song on Spotify.
Knew it.
130.5 million streams on the shorter edition that Geoff just talked about. And then on the long version, which the Loaf fans prefer, 22.7 million on the album version.
Not too shaggy.
Not too shabby.
I mean, you want to talk about your power ballad, most memorable songs off the album, whether or not it's your favorite, it takes the cake because it had that music video where it was like Beauty and the Beast and Phantom of the Opera. And again, it's one of those songs that stands on its own. I mean, the vocal performance on this in that lead up to the chorus, as long as the fires are burning, you better believe it, when he just unhinges that, and I would do. You all know the fucking song. Just he's swinging for the fences, batting 1,000 vocally on this. It's emotionally, lyrically, vocally perfect. And then what sends it over the top for me, and the reason I was like, boys, I think we got to talk about this one, because none of us picked this originally. And I was like, I got to swap this out for a pick, because the legend of what it is he won't do for love is a huge misnomer. And the story goes, Jim Steinman wrote the song, and Meat Loaf was like, yeah, this is awesome. And Steinman got this voice in the back of his head where he's like, I think people might not understand the multiple things he won't do. We talk about what he'll do for love. I don't know if it's going to be clear to people the things he won't do to this girl. And he was right, because there are a lot of people who will die on the hill that, like, what he won't do remains a mystery, and that is what makes the song so good. And that's fine. That's a fun interpretation, but he literally does spell it out for us, the things that he won't do. And I will read them right here. Do you think I can get a light from you again?
Well, I was going to say, you can just read them right off my lit
Ah,
thing, because I
well,
have them too.
Great minds.
There we go. Production value.
Fucking A. Firing on all cylinders. Here are the things, and it's tricky because of the way that it's worded. He says a bunch of stuff that he'll do, and then she says something, and he's like, no, I won't do that. So in order, the things he would never do. He won't lie to her. He won't forget the way he feels right now. He won't forgive himself if they don't go all the way tonight. He's never going to do it better than he does it with her. He's never going to stop dreaming of her every night of his life. He's never going to see that it's time to move on, and he's never going to screw around. Thank you for the use of your iPad.
You're welcome.
So it's right there, but it's worded, I wouldn't say clunkily, but somewhat ambiguously if you're not like paying attention to the words. And it's a very long song, so I think attention spans may have slightly waned in terms of trying to parse the lyrics, especially when the music is as big as it's ever fucking been from Jim Steinman and Meat Loaf, and you're just washed over.
Yeah, I think he does. I think to your credit, you're trying to back off of people a little bit that don't get what he's talking about, but he says it very explicitly. There's all those implied ones that you mentioned, like the whole list of and basically the entire lyrics in every single verse. There's something he won't do, but at the very end, she says it'll all turn to dust and we'll all fall down. Sooner or later, you'll be screwing around. And he goes, I won't do that.
Yeah.
No, I won't do that. So he has a very specific thing that he answers. So if that's all you needed was one answer, that was it. Right at the end of the song, if you listen to it, you'd get it.
I have I got a lot of stuff here. I said this could be the ultimate Meat Loaf song, complete with the motorcycle sounds on the intro. Mesmerizing piano on this song. Some nights you're like nothing I've ever seen before or will again. Like these are just these little phrases that get dropped into an 11-minute song. Some days I pray for silence. Some days I pray for soul. Some days I just pray to the God of sex and drums and rock and roll. And they all just like
baby.
scream it. Yeah. And we all do it, man. Come on. We're all praying to that. The 7-minute mark, again, as this is a long song, that chorus at the 7-minute mark is like the real triumphant one when they're coming through. And, they're hitting all the flourishes, the drummer's going off, the backup singers are going crazy. It takes 9 minutes for us to hear the female voice of the song, and that's fine. And she gets to sing this awesome line, will you colorize my life? I'm so sick of black and white.
And to jump in real quick,
baby.
will you hose me down with holy water if I get too hot?
Hot. yeah.
Fucking perfect.
Yeah, I have
Dead
that,
red, baby.
Yeah, I have that very specifically written favorite sing-along part of this song is the hot after holy water. Yeah, I mean, again, like, something happened in the pop culture sensibility because this song was on that VH1 show, the worst songs ever, like the most awesomely bad songs ever, or something like that. Cool, I want to hear what Andy Dick has to say about Meat Loaf songs. That's really whose opinion I give a fuck
Boo.
about. So, like, even these idiots were like, oh, it's too much. It's like, everyone takes stuff a little too seriously. And if you can just allow yourself to shed whatever weird cynicism you have, you can't listen to this song and not just like totally rock out. This song totally rocks. And it's similar to, like you said, like the multiple part story of Paradise by the Dashboard Light. Because again, this song has segments, because again, we don't hear the female voice until very late in the song. And then it ends, we hit this big crescendo at like the 7-minute mark, the 9-minute mark, hot, and then we start to come back down the mountain, and it ends, very sweetly. And the way that the piano ends at the very end, just like, I really, there are songs that I listen to, and I'm like, God, I would have liked to like be in the studio, be a fly on the wall, like when they nailed it, like when they got that take. It's the part in Objects in the Rearview Mirror, like when that came together, like these little moments. That's really what Meat Loaf's all about for me. Is like you know, I can listen to an 11-minute song and tell you about 37 specific moments in the song that I like.
Mm-hmm.
That's one song. There are some bands I love that come out with albums I couldn't give you 3. And Meat Loaf gives you 40 in one song.
That's exactly correct. He does give you 40.
It's just the attention to detail, the production value. You know, there's probably plenty that have done as well, but I feel like you can't do better. You know, it's at that level where it's like every little detail, everywhere you want something, like, will you hose me down with holy water if I get too hot? Like, they just decide to like throw that little bit in there. You know, the way that the interplay, will you take me places I've never known? And the way he says, now I can do that. Like, the way he sings that is so much different than the way he sings the rest of the song. It's like, just, he adds the emotion into what he's singing so well. And while this might be like the biggest, cheesiest song there is, it's so good because of that. The full commitment to the bit is what is key with all of Meat Loaf's music, and especially on this song.
Anyone? I'd like to say, if no one else has anything to say about this song, the final word on this for the listening audience out there, let's put this to rest. The song, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. The thing that he won't do is not going down on a girl. That's the most popular thing everyone says. He would do anything for love, but he won't, you know.
Did DJ Khaled go back in time and write this for him?
Another one.
The next one is probably representative of the genesis of my musical love of Meat Loaf, but I'm going to let the person that chose it bring it in, and it's Life is a Lemon, and I Want My Money Back.
I'll try to keep this as brief as I possibly can, because I did change in my chit for I Do Anything for Love. But again, for me, the reason I picked this in the first place is because Meat Loaf is pissed off. And being in Meat Loaf's way when he's pissed off, being in his crosshairs, that is like waving a red cape at a bull. You do not want to be there, my friend. And that is all the energy that he brings into this song. We talked about Rock and Roll Dreams is about, you know, those dreams actually coming true and it being a relief and a release. This song is the total opposite. It is the frustration of your unrealized dreams. Everything is suck. School, the country, your friends, your family, the people you love, your fucking piece of shit car. It is all going to let you down in the end, and it's going to build to a head, and you are going to be screaming to the heavens in pure primal agony the way Meat Loaf does in this song. A singularly pissed off Meat Loaf classic.
This is the one. This was the gateway, right? Because we talk about Geoff Picks Me Up. We put the CD in. First song, I'd Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That. I've heard that song before. I'm familiar with that song. Track 2, Life is a Lemon. This thing starts, and you're just like, wait, what the fuck is this? Like, it absolutely rips.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in every sense of the word. And then I remember it was like maybe a week or two after I had first heard this CD. And again, once I had heard it once in Jeff's car for like, I don't know, a year and a half. It's pretty much all we listened to in Jeff's car.
Yep.
We picked up a friend of the pod, Mitch, and we went for a little drive. And we put this album on. And he had the same reaction as me. He knew I'd Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That. Second song starts, and he's in the back seat. Wait, what the hell is this?
I recognize this. I think Meat Loaf is my dad.
Yeah. he just somehow knows all the words.
Yeah. Holy
First
shit.
listen.
It's encoded in my DNA.
But yeah, like this song, and this is another beauty that Geoff and I are blessed to have seen him perform live.
Mm-hmm.
And he, like, again, when he performed this stuff, you know, he would play the role of the character, you know, and in this song, he was fucking pissed, guys. He was pissed. And,
Feeling it.
Yeah. It's just, you know, the bass really shines on this song for me. You know, it's a never-ending attack. And that bass part goes... Yeah. Everything's a lie and that's a fact. And then come the, you know, the fact. Again, the backup vocals...
Slipping through the cracks.
Yo, yeah. And then the
Maybe
part
the best background vocals on Meat Loaf. That Slippin' is just, ooh, baby, it's hot.
Yeah. Ooh, baby.
he does this whole bridge where they do this call and response where his band ask him a question and he just says it's defective. They run the whole gamut. You know, love, sex, family, friends, hope, faith, your gods, your town, your school, your work, your childhood, your future, it's defective, and you can shove it up your ass. And he hits that.
Oh, man.
Dude. Yeah, and the vocal harmonies that like interchange. Again, this is a gateway Meat Loaf song.
Yeah.
Like Bat Out of Hell on the first one, your lead off track, but then you get into your Hot Summer Night, and that's like when you really start to get in and yeah, Life Isn't Lemon and I Want My Money Back. Again, as we grow older and more cynical, as the world continues to get more and more fucked up, seemingly by the day, no better anthem than this song.
Amen.
Yeah, this was the one for me. This is the one that I clearly remember just screaming at the top of my lungs in the back seat of my dad's Dodge Caravan. And just that part, what about your future? It's defective and you can shove it up your ass. 8-9-year-old me was stoked to have this song available to me. And I would scream, I would yell it. And I remember my mom one time was like, "What is he listening to?" And I think my dad just looks at her and goes, "Meat Loaf," and just like turns back to the road and keeps driving. That was it.
I can visualize that so vividly.
just like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not that Limp Bizkit everyone's talking about.
Yeah. Oh, that came a few years later.
I like to think of break stuff as sort of Limp
don't worry.
Bizkit's lemon.
That was-
Life is a lemon.
That was still on the horizon.
Yeah, I'd like to juxtapose Nookie alongside Rock and Roll Dreams Come Through if I could.
I
We
mean, they
think
have
that
the
Hard
same
Day's
message. Really, it's the same thing.
We like to think that Hard
Well-
Day's Night is our guilty as charged.
In the interest of time here, because we have a
Yeah.
handful more to go through. Now, while there was "Life Is a Lemon" and another song we're going to get to next, those were the two, and we'll name the next one when we get to that one. Those were the two songs with "Life Is a Lemon" that really were like I said, my genesis with Meat Loaf. That was where I became who I am as a Meat Loaf fan, was those songs. But over the years, the song that really started to stand out to me, and the song that really kind of became my number one and my anthem for my life, is Everything Louder Than Everything Else. Now, maybe it's even cheesier than I'd Do Anything for Love, but I won't do that. It very well could be. Saying his idols are Curly, Larry, and Moe. Things like just ridiculous. Forget the who am I, why am I here? Forget the questions. Someone give me another beer. You got to learn to dance before you learn to crawl. I mean, just some classic Meat Loaf lines. It follows the weirdest like soliloquy that you'll ever hear in your life called "Wasted Youth." Like, go ahead and check that out. When you go to hop on and listen to Meat Loaf and you start with Bat Out of Hell 2, which is what I recommend, go right to the middle of the album. Go right to Wasted Youth and to Everything Louder Than Everything Else. You will understand the full gamut of how weird Jim Steinman and Meat Loaf can get together. Because this song, the all-encompassing, most beautiful line in rock and roll history, "A wasted youth is better by far than a wise and productive old age." And he makes sure you hear it by saying it 18,000 times in this song, and each time it gets better and more true.
They say I'm wild and I'm reckless. Wild, wild, wild. Again, the backup vocals. I should
Oh,
be
yeah.
acting my age. Wild, wild. the way that he sings this line to me, I'm an impressionable child in a tumultuous world, and they say I'm at a difficult stage. Again, talk about like, a song kind of personifying where you're at in your life and where you are in life in the moment where you hear this song for the first time or where the song really connects with you for the first time. But it seems to me, to the contrary of all the crap they're going to put on the page, again, it's like saying like, hey, written history, fuck that. This is real history. This is what history is really like. And then, as Geoff said, ways to do this better by far than a wise and productive old age. I mean, it's just like an absolute rocker, but it's not like the same kind of rocker that Life is a Lemon is. It has a very different kind of style and feeling. And again, he's pissed off in this, but he's not Life is a Lemon pissed off. He's kind of like thumbing his nose at everyone. And like Geoff said, like the Three Stooges line, I remember being in the car and like Geoff leans over for that line and you went like Curly, Larry, Moe, and you counted on your fingers like you were looking right at me, and I was like, you sitting dead right on that one. And then you were like, that's him saying like, fuck you, like fuck your views of history, like it doesn't matter, it's all relative, like fuck what you think I should do, like this is me. And yeah, like this is a very much like a middle finger to everyone that doesn't get, I would say this song is a middle finger to everyone that doesn't get Meat Loaf.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. I can see that for sure. And all I'll say about this one in the interest of time is I love it for all the reasons you guys demonstrate. I would say it's not one of my top Meat Loaf songs, but as we like to say about a lot of the artists that we love, I can't even say it's the worst, but like a mid-tier Meat Loaf song to me is something that other artists, Foo Fighters, could only ever dream of touching in an alternate universe if they were completely different people. So it's, I mean, pound for pound, this is one of the fucking biggest rock songs. A lot of balls hanging between those legs.
Big balls.
Big ball
Big
song.
balls. Big balls. Big meaty balls. Well, now the last one we're going to talk about from the Bat Out of Hell 2 album is a little one called Out of the Frying Pan and Into the Fire. Now this was the second of the songs that really just kicked off my love for Meat Loaf. I'd go between Life is a Lemon and Out of the Frying Pan pretty often, just between those two songs for a long time. And it, again, didn't get picked by any of us right off the bat, but it was one that we felt needed a little recognition. And the one that fought for it was Tanner.
Yeah, I really struggled because like Rock and Roll Dreams Come Through is a Desert Island song for me. But Out of the Frying Pan might be the song that on this album for me is like the best song, like the singular best song. The lyrics are awesome. It totally like rips and grooves. Like some of these lyrics, man, come on. It's never been this hot and I've never been so bored and breathing is just no fun anymore. And then I saw you like a summer dream and you're the answer to every prayer that I ever said. And then again, the glorious backing harmonies repeat that line back to you. You can just like, again, visualize this. Everyone can relate to this, to seeing someone like so beautiful you don't even know who they are. You might be like shoveling poop on a farm and like some girl like walks by or whatever. Like it's like literally any scenario possible where you're like down, it's super hot, and then so like a summer dream. And the pre-chorus, the way that it kicks into it, and you get this visual thing. Wander down the ancient hallway, taking the stairs only one at a time. Follow the sound of my heartbeat. Now I'm in the room at the top. You're at the end of the line. Open the door, lay down on the bed. The sun is just a ball of desire. Into the triumphant chorus, where everyone is just screaming fire, seemingly at different times. Piano parts going off. Exactly. But and again, this is another one that like I recall very vividly. Like we got to that pre-chorus part in Geoff's car for the first time, and he just cranked the volume knob all the way up, and the build to it every time gets bigger and bigger and bigger as the song goes through. And also, there's a part I have written here at 4:04. It's about to kick back into the verse. They're going to repeat the same verse as the first time, and Meat Loaf just goes, "Ah!" And like it's not how it plays, and like the fans, we sit dead red on it, and we know it's coming, and we do it. Again, it was a very difficult to kind of like leave this off my list, but fuck guys, this is just like a really, really perfect song.
I will say my brief personal inroads on this one. As a vocalist, this is a masterclass in dynamics and vocal range. This was a song that was designed for Meat Loaf to strut the full range of his stuff. He can be quiet, he can be tender. The wander down the ancient hallway, that's very mysterious, and you kind of see that, hazy, floating, just like magically drawn, open the door, lay down in the bed. It's all very fantastic and mystical, but he's not afraid to do the and like to scream and crank it up on this song. He's hitting notes that no human being that's not an opera singer should be able to hit. This is a showcase for his voice, and one of my personal favorites too, so I'm glad we got a little shine in on it.
You were only killing time, and it will kill you right back.
Come on, come on.
I
It's time
mean,
to burn up the fuse. We got nothing to do and even less to lose.
it's just so good. So good all the way around, every bit of it. So goddamn good. Now, we have one more album. One more album to go. And it's Bat Out of Hell 3, The Monster is Loose. Now, this one, I feel like we need to give the kind of precursor that it's not the same as the other albums. There are some Jim Steinman songs on here, but this was put together definitely as like a way to capitalize on the other Bat Out of Hell albums, the other two of them, to make it be like, okay, well, what significant record can Meat Loaf release these days? And Bat Out of Hell 3 came up here. And I think, Desmond Child is somebody that's all over this album, as a producer, just like many things on here. There, like I said, there are some Jim Steinman songs on here. I think there are some songs that are as strong as anything else Meat Loaf ever did, but to me, this album is not quite at the level of the other two.
I agree, and I could see this album being a more brief conversation, as more the end of the Bat Out of Hell legacy. It's putting a punctuation. Again, we talk about moving through different decades and the story continuing. It's kind of putting a punctuation mark at the end of this decades-long journey. And I think does so successfully. And I think the weird thing is, Geoff, you're the only one that picked a Steinman tune, and it had already been done by Bonnie Raitt.
Bonnie Tyler.
Tyler, not Bonnie Raitt. Let's give them something to talk about.
No, it was Celine Dion.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Holy F. We got
so-
our bodies mixed up with this.
Oh my
Celine.
God! What controversry! I don't know. Some white lady.
maybe Bonnie Raitt or whoever else you guys meant. Maybe they did it too. I don't know.
Yeah, don't patronize us.
All three of them.
But
Whatever.
The famous one. Well, I mean, at this point, Jim Steinman was slinging himself all over Music City, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It could have been anybody. Everybody wanted a little bit of that Meat Loaf shine, but the version of that song that I'm gonna be comparing it to is the Celine Dion version. But there's a very specific reason I picked that one. But that's not the first one.
Do you want to just jump in with it, though?
Yeah, let's just do that one. Yeah. So it's all coming back to me now. Now, this song, you probably know it by Celine Dion. But how you should know it is by Meat Loaf. And let me tell you why. Because this song was written to be a duet. And when done correctly as a duet, it is one of the greatest duets that has ever existed, even amongst the myriad of incredible duets that Jim Steinman penned on other Meat Loaf albums. Now, Meat Loaf does this one with a singer named Marion Raven, who I'm pretty sure never did anything else other than this. But I feel like you can listen to the Celine Dion version and it's good. And Fiancé de Pod Marla is going to hate me for saying this, but This is the reason I have a podcast, is that I can say these things, and it's forever etched in the history of the internet. And she's just some guy, you know? That's the difference here. That's why I love doing this. But it's so much better with the Meat Loaf version because it was written as a duet. It's written as a kind of call and response thing between, you know, two jilted lovers. You know, and I think it's beautifully done by Meat Loaf, and it's definitely stretching the capabilities that his voice had at this point in his life. Because this was 2006 that this album came out. So, I mean, this was 30 years after Bat Out of Hell 1, you know, a decade and a half after Bat Out of Hell 2. So it's like there was a long time between all these albums. So he aged quite a bit. And the thing we see with singers and vocalists, especially that of his power, is they stay good singers, but they definitely don't have the punch and the range that they used to, you know? But this song, I feel like it was all coming back to him. You know, it was just like every bit of the power that
there.
Meat Loaf, he's not as good as he once was, but he's as good once as he ever was. And he certainly was on this song.
Fuck me. You bastard. How dare you invoke Toby Keith while we're talking about Meat Loaf? I'm done. I'm out. Tanner, you take over.
Yeah. There were nights of endless pleasure. It was more than any laws allow. Like that's pretty wild. I mean, it's gonna be some pretty wild stuff. The harmonies on this song, Meat Loaf and Marion Raven, the way that their voices kind of intersect with each other, and they like, it's like two ships passing in the night. Sometimes on some of the harmony where he'll go low, she'll go high, she'll go low, he'll go high. And when the first time I heard this song, actually was, and it's a funny callback, talking about FYE, because Geoff just sent us a text the other day about an FYE still existing down in the greater Houston area. Geoff and I went to the Berlin Mall and to the FYE, and Geoff bought this CD, and we sat in his car in the parking lot and started listening to it there. And the first time I heard it, I didn't even know that Celine Dion had done this song.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but pre-smartphone, I think I had like a Kyocera slider. You weren't able to look up Wikipedia on that thing back then, I'll tell you. You could buy a ringtone for $7 that sounded like shit, but you couldn't look up any Meat Loaf
Crazy
Wikipedia.
Frog.
Oh, fuck the Crazy Frog.
Oh, my God.
But yeah, like, again, the harmonies on this song, this is a top-tier Meat Loaf love song. And again, Marion Raven, like, really, of all the female vocalists that Meat Loaf sang these love songs with over the years, the albums that we didn't talk about over time, he's done duets with Cher, you know. But Marion Raven slots herself in right in that upper echelon of the she enhances Meat Loaf's vocals on the song, and he in turn enhances hers, and it's just fantastic.
She was a really smart pick for this in the sense that there is such contrast between their voices. That's a double-edged sword for me, though, because she sounds so young and so sweet. It would have been nice to see someone with like a little more mileage on their voice. You wouldn't want to do Cher again, especially not at that point. Cher worked really well for Dead Ringer because that was a raucous, like, let's go fuck in the back of my car kind of song. And they were their voices together, Meat Loaf and Cher, whenever that album came out, 1980, I think. Oh, my God. Marriage Made in Hell. It was perfect. So I don't know exactly who I would put in. And no shade on Marion Raven. She's awesome. She does an amazing job. It's just, for me, if we talk about Nights of Endless Pleasure, it was more than any law allows. I'm like, yeah, and the girl sounds awful young on this song. Like,
Can I pitch something?
Sure.
Well, first off, the one thing, Patty Russo, one of his frequent collaborators, she sings a duet with him later on this album. What About Love? Sleeper pick for me. But I always saw this song as like Meat Loaf's looking back into his past, almost like the great song that the idiot producers cut out of Muppet Christmas Carol. So Meat Loaf is more of a Michael Caine figure in this scenario. He's looking back at his past love that was lost, and it's all coming back to him now.
That's a good, yeah.
And he's remembering her as she was, her youthful form. Maybe she died. Maybe she left him, or you know what I mean? He's this old man alone, and he's, reaching back into his memories museum, to quote Ye. And like that's just the way that I always saw it, because it is a super stark contrast. So maybe that was me rationalizing it in my brain, and maybe Meat Loaf was like, no, fuck that. We were definitely like, me and this young girl could definitely hook up, and I was, damn it.
No, it's me singing about a 22-year-old. What are you talking about? No, I like that. I like that interpretation.
Now, let's not besmirch the good name of the loaf. Okay?
We're not. We're
Man-
not.
No.
We're not.
I wish
the
I was
man
that
Pure
cool.
of intention. The man was pure of intention. Okay. And yeah, it was a little weird. It was a little weird when he put it that way.
Face value.
It was a little weird. But that was my point on that one. Is it has to be looked at as one of the great duets ever. I mean, it is so good. The way they both sing it, and Meat Loaf, like, really, you know, when Nolan Ryan was at the end of his career and he wasn't quite touching like 95, 96 anymore, once in a while he could still reach back and get it. You know, and I know Meat Loaf would appreciate a baseball reference, especially a Texas guy like Nolan Ryan. So you're welcome. You're welcome, Michael. But let's move on to another one from Battered Hell 3. And this one is, once again, not the one that Alex and I thought you were going to pick, Tanner, but Alive is the one that you chose.
Can I ask before I get into it, did you guys think I was going to pick Alex's pick?
I thought you were going to pick Monsters Loose.
Oh, okay. Well, full disclosure, I juggled with a different pick, but it wasn't Monsters Loose. That song does rip ass, though.
Yeah.
What was the other pick?
Blind as a Bat.
Sneaky
Oh,
good one.
Sneaky.
Yeah.
Sneaky. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that one.
Yeah. Meat Loaf's vocal
Yeah.
performance on that song is really good. There's a lot of like orchestral hits on it. But for me, when we listened to it in Jeff's car that first time, the songs that were all happening before this song were good. They were all good and fine. And this was the one that reached out and grabbed me. Boom. Alive. The piano line is very reminiscent of I Would Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That. The chorus has this rhythm to it. The lyrics, again, and I'm not afraid to say that, like, usually the cornier the Meat Loaf lyrics, the more I love them. I'm a runaway train on a broken track. I'm a ticker on the bomb that you can't turn back this time. And again, going back to the high school yearbook, I quoted this song on my page too. Yeah, I got away with it all and I'm still alive. Let the end of the world come tumbling down. I'll be the last man standing on the ground. As long as hot blood runs through my veins, I'm still alive. It's like the ultimate, I'm down, but I'm not out. The bridge is awesome. You get a lot of those angelic things that happen into a guitar solo, into a double chorus out of it. He does a little pause when he says, "That's right," late in the song, and then the ending, everyone fades out. The piano does its little thing, and then you get these big hits at the end. Ba 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 ba. It's like a perfect ending. So yeah, this is one. And when Jeff and I saw him in concert, he didn't play this song. They played a video on the screen during like the set break, where it was like him and like all the TV shows and movies he had been in set to this song. So like we got to hear this song at the show, which is cool. But I was like, oh, I really wish they had played it. But the guy,
I don't know
the guy
what they
needed a
would have
break.
dropped. Yeah, I don't know what they
Oh,
would have dropped.
No, yeah, and there's nothing on the
Yeah.
set list that I would have removed for this song. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
and again,
I mean,
it's
it's a good
very
one.
not, yeah, and it's very not Steinman. It's very not Bat Out of Hell in this, weird amalgam that he gets us into on Bat Out of Hell 3, where it's some Steinman, some random stuff. We all kind of put it together in this big melting pot that is Bat Out of Hell 3. The Monster is Loose, but yeah, no, it's the one that stood out on the first listen, and it still stands out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jeff, you got anything
exactly
on
like exactly like you said. It's that, like, he might be a little punch drunk, but he's still standing, and I think I feel like that's just very representative of Meat Loaf's entire life. I think it's something that from when he was very young, he didn't have the easiest childhood. He was looked at as nothing more than his weight for a long time, but like, look at him now. One of the best selling artists of all time. You know, it's like he may not be on the echelon of like the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and like those kind of people, but if there's a second tier, he's going to be right there as far as like total success and album sales. But as far as like an original artist and like just sticking with who he is for his entire life, there's nobody better than him. You know, I don't think anybody's ever done what he has to the extreme that he has and had the success that he did. You know, I think a lot of other people would have burned out long before he did, or anyone that's been around this long didn't ever go quite as hard as he did. You know, and I think a song like Alive is a great retrospective song. You know, it came out 16 years ago. He just passed away, so it's not as if this was like the end for him or anything like that. He came out with a few albums after this. But it's, you know, I think just a statement of like at least closing the Bat Out of Hell chapter of his career. And I think it was like, look at how far we came with this. Look at all the things that happened in between. And I think Alive is just such a great representation of like an all-encompassing kind of retrospective song.
And this dovetails with, unless you have more to say about Alive.
I just was going to say that Desmond Child got hired to produce this album because he showed Meat Loaf the song Alive, and that it was written like about kind of Meat Loaf's like struggles in life and stuff. And that's when Meat Loaf was like, you're going to produce this. You're my guy.
You get it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my pick, If Only God Could Talk, is quite simply for me, the reason I picked it is we know that Meat Loaf's greatest success came with Jim Steinman. They had a brotherly relationship that was frequently adversarial. They had little periods where they fell out, but they never really stopped talking and they didn't really feud. Their management sued each other. They had times where they were pissed at each other and they would snipe, but for the most part, these were two guys that really loved each other and were at their best working together. And we know what happens when Meat Loaf tries to fuck the dog and have someone else hold the head. Because the songs are incomprehensible fucking garbage and they don't suit his voice. This is an interesting example for me because, like I said, Tanner and I picked two songs that were not Steinman tunes. And this to me is an example that Meat Loaf isn't defined by Jim Steinman, nor was Jim Steinman by Meat Loaf. Greatest success, but not defined by one another. Synonymous, but not solely beholden to each other. Mm-hmm. This is a song that Meat Loaf tears the ass out of. I think it's not a great song. I think it is made by Meat Loaf. I think if you gave this to anybody else, it's flatter than piss on a rock. I would not like this song if not for Meat Loaf, and he makes it not just tolerable. He makes me love this fucking song. I believe all the emotion he puts behind it. I believe what I interpret to be his mindset while he's singing it. Again, we're talking about the old man at the end of the road, especially with the three bats. I believe every single thing he's doing. I feel his conviction in this song. And that to me is, again, the strength of Meat Loaf and his talent. It's undeniable. If you give him something, he's going to put his spin on it, and he's probably going to knock it out of the park. If he gives himself something, it's a different story. Anybody else, give it your best shot.
Yeah, so If God Could Talk, yes, Tanner, this was the one that I thought you were going to pick on this one.
I recall some conversations that Geoff and I had back in the day about this song. And also Cry Over Me.
Yeah, yep. Another one I really don't like that much.
Yeah, that's,
I don't like the doo-wop.
31-year-old me, maybe I don't like that song anymore. The 20-whatever-year-old me, maybe I was into it. I don't know.
It was a tumultuous period in the young tan man's life.
I'm an impressionable child in a tumultuous world, and they say I'm in a difficult stage.
I mean, those are my thoughts on my pick. I don't know what anyone else says.
No, I would agree that, like, anybody else doing this song, it wouldn't be worth listening to. I loved this song from the first time I heard it until now. I still like the way that the chorus loads in with that, why don't you run away, find yourself alive. Again, it's the song after Alive, and it's got the word alive in it. Yep. And it's written by different people ostensibly, so maybe I'm making a connection that doesn't really exist. But and again, it's a relatively short song. We get a little bit of the angry Meat Loaf on the bridge here, with the guitar going. But, yeah, I think this is it's a good Meat Loaf love song. It's about love lost, um, and yeah, and it fits in with the canon of the feeling of all the Bat Out of Hell albums, I would say.
Geoff, anything to say about this one before we wrap it up here?
I think this one fits in to the canon of the Bat Out of Hell albums, as well as like the flavor in a LaCroix. It's there. It's Meat Loaf. I don't mind it.
Yeah.
But just for me, this was not my favorite one. But again, it's like I just feel like that long into his career, him being able to like pull that voice out of himself and just like will it to happen. That admirable, to say the very least, about the entire Bat Out of Hell 3 album. Whether it stood up song for song as well as the other Bat albums did, I think it's pretty obvious that it doesn't, but when it hits, it hits. It's just as good as it ever was with him. In this album too, like he had Brian May on a song on this album.
Mm-hmm.
He had
Bad for
Jennifer
Good.
Hudson on a song. He brought back Patty Russo for another song. So like he made this like a very much like a career retrospective for himself, because Brian May, obviously part of Queen, a band very popular at the same time that Meat Loaf was, so that's like kind of hearkening back to that. Patty Russo, somebody that had been part of his career, and Jennifer Hudson at that point, 2006, she's known around the world as one of the like a number one picks if you ever need like a national anthem song or like a tribute song or anything like that. I don't know if she's really done original music, but she can sing her ass off. And this was like an up and coming, like the next generation of a singer like Meat Loaf that just like could hit every single emotion and really just put a song over the top with their vocal ability. I just thought it was so cool on this album, the way he just like always paid homage to the past, but just like with Alive was like, no, I'm still here doing this. Like I'm still actively doing this. It might be the end of like the Bat saga in my life, but this is something that I'm going to continue to do because I love to do it.
Yeah, and real quick, one more thing that this album crystallizes for me is he's not an old man stuck in the past. Certain things about you are fundamentally you, and a lot of the sensibilities that have gone into the 3 Bat albums, his voice, that's all kind of innate to Meat Loaf. So instead of just like, let's go back to the well, although on Bat Out of Hell 2, Jim Steinman was like, yeah, it's a continuation of the story. And Meat Loaf said, yeah, if we call it Bat Out of Hell 2, it'll sell a shitload. That aside, it really isn't just like going back to the well to recreate what worked. It's what works about you on a fundamental level, written on your DNA. And he was the best in the biz at what he did.
And we get, Seize the Night is like the final bit of Steinman true bombast. They did Braver Than We Are, way later on, but like Seize the Night at almost 10 minutes long is the closest thing to the mini musical that you kind of get off this album. The Monster is loose a little bit, but like Seize the Night has the operatic swings, it has the string section. It's got really everything going for it. And I did just want to jump in and say, going back to If God Could Talk, this guy Marty Fredrickson co-wrote it with Desmond Child, and Marty Fredrickson also co-wrote Jaded with Aerosmith.
We all contain multitudes.
Yeah. He also would perform the lead vocals for the fake band in Almost Famous. But I know these things. I'm reading off a tablet. Bat Out of
That's
Hell
what he
3,
wants us to think.
Yeah,
Check
yeah.
that tablet. That's a black screen. There's nothing there.
It's just I've just written nutty words on it. It's like you said, it's the closing of the door on the Bat Out of Hell trilogy. It feels like the Bat Out of Hell trilogy just sounds better rolling off the tongue than Bat 1 and 2. And Steinman always saw 2 as like Bat Out of Hell Part 2. Like he said that he saw it like the Godfather movie series, right?
Yes, yep.
The continuation of the story. And then, Meat Loaf kind of came in and was like, we'll sell a bunch if we do this. again, for all the great they did together. Maybe they get some decisions wrong over time. But you close the door on the Bat trilogy with this. This is the tour that Geoff and I saw Meat Loaf on, was the Three Bats tour. There are some absolute rippers on this album, but again, like in terms of pound for pound, the best Meat Loaf albums that he did, I don't know if I would put this on that upper echelon necessarily. The nostalgia's there, the name recognition is there, but again, if you're looking for Meat Loaf Bat Out of Hell songs, it's got to be 1 and 2 before you get down to Bat 3.
Yeah, I don't think 3 is getting anybody into Meat Loaf for the first time.
Yeah,
Correct.
But, that's a super fair assessment. And again, it's lacking the essence in parts that the first 2 have.
Yeah. So, I think we've reached the end of the road here, an appropriate point. Would everyone like to go around and give kind of a brief final eulogy for Meat Loaf and what he meant to you and what you think about? Just no rules, I guess. Just like something you want to say about Meat Loaf.
Yeah. These aren't my words, but it's my feeling. The other day at work, I was watching, random Meat Loaf YouTube videos to get ready for this, and this YouTube commenter, Meat Loaf Live in Florida, is a video that's on YouTube, and it's in the Bat Out of Hell 2 era. He's playing a lot of Bat 2, Bat 1 songs on it, and this YouTube commenter obviously is writing on this after Meat Loaf had passed. And the line is, "Bless you, Jim and Meat. You truly gave us the fountain of youth. We are just a bunch of lost boys who will never grow up." And that's really how I feel about it. Is I hear a Meat Loaf song off Bat 1 or Bat 2, and I'm immediately 17 again in Geoff's Ford Focus. Like I might be 31 in the here and now, but in my mind and in my mind's eye, I'm back there. And there's a lot of Lost Boys and Golden Girls off Bat 2, a lot of Peter Pan stuff. Jim Steinman loved the Peter Pan story, and it's interwoven through everything. And yeah, I just think that surmises it pretty much perfectly for me. And thank you, random YouTube commenter on Meat Loaf Live in Florida, for providing me with that context.
You never know where you're going to find gold.
I know.
You never know. But Meat Loaf was just such a unique and just because of that a very inspirational person. Just to I don't know how much true how strong the adversity was. I know he didn't have the easiest childhood, but to do the things in the time that he did, which is like doing musical theater as somebody that's built like specifically to play football, and then to be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do musical theater, and like all the things that he had to deal with from his family to do that. And then to give us just the pieces of himself that he gave us in the 3 Bat albums and the rest of his music as well, but especially those, since that's what we were talking about today. And I think what he's most known for, obviously, maybe being the bus driver in Spice World. He might be more known for that. But it's just the way that I, started listening to him is really my first like band that I remember. Like him and Aerosmith were like the first things that I really remember, like going and seeking it out. And like, I want to hear more of this. It was those 2 CDs for a few years. And I never really, like, as I grew up, the music is like, has enough funny stuff in it, enough interesting musical notes to like, it's interesting when you're young, but as you get older and you start to understand the themes and you get that humor a little bit more, it's like the first time you watch Austin Powers when you were like 10, you're like, oh, this is funny. Ha ha. You made a poop joke. Ha ha. But then you get older and you realize that like in my country, men come first and women come second. And sometimes not at all. It's like that kind of joke that you don't get when you're 10, but you do now. And it's like, I feel like that's the same thing with Meat Loaf's music, is like, as you grow up, it grows with you, even though it was already recorded. And that's why I think from like when I was 20 to when I was 10 to when I'm going to be 70, it's like, I'm always going to love Meat Loaf because of what he represented in his music, just the originality, the bold like vision to be unique, and to team up with someone as wild and weird as Jim Steinman. It was just like nobody to me could ever fill that void.
Well, you talk about inspiration And I think for me, the thing I'll always remember that connects me to Meat Loaf, and the thing I'll thank him for the most is, Lamo put this on my Instagram, but as a chunky kid with a set of pipes, you hear someone like Meat Loaf, you see someone like Meat Loaf. How can you not feel connected to him? How can you not feel inspired? He was me, and I am him. And not to compare our successes and necessarily level of talent, but that was someone that I saw myself in, and that's very, very, very rare, not just for me, but for a lot of people. There are a lot of people out there who want to look out and see themselves in musicians that they can admire, and I was very, very fortunate to have that with Meat Loaf. I've been fortunate to be listening to his music from a young age, and I also want to thank Jim Steinman for writing the music that powered Meat Loaf. There would be no Meat Loaf without Jim Steinman. There would be no Jim Steinman without Meat Loaf. Thank you both. You guys helped make me who I am today.
Yes, and make sure that you let us know. We want to hear about what your memories with Meat Loaf are, because we know there's a bunch of you out there that have the same kind of core memories we do, and we'd love to hear about it. So when you hear this, let us know wherever it is, whether it's you see it on Instagram, you see it on YouTube, wherever it is, just let us know about your memories about Meat Loaf, because if you've listened to him like we have, you've got one or two in the chamber, and I think now's a great time to kind of remember the man for who he was as an artist, who he was as a human, and know that we were witness to something special while he was alive. So is there anything else that either of you had to add this week? Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to make sure we cover?
My furnace has a leak in it. I'd like to plug that.
Hi-oh.
I'm serious, though. It's leaking water right there. I have a little thing of Tupperware under it.
I can see it. It's true. Oh, it just kicked
And
on
it
in
just turned
response. I just want to say thank you, Tanner. Thank you for coming on and doing this with us.
Absolutely. Pleasure, absolutely all mine. You guys are trending up, my boys. So, yeah, if you're not listening, you're not hearing me say this, and you're stupid. And if you are listening, hook your wire onto these guys and get along for the ride, because there's some really, really cool stuff coming down the pike from out on that line. And again, I just consider myself very lucky to be able to sit down and talk about what this musical artist meant with two of my best friends. And it's a tie that binds us together, among many other things, experiences in life and everything. But one constant that we have, the three of us, is our love for Meat Loaf's music. So thank you for the opportunity to come out and spill my guts a little bit.
Well, I think if we've got nothing else, thank you, Tanner. It's been a pleasure. I'm sure we'll have you on again, hopefully sooner rather than later, here in the future. Till next time.